Hi everyone, in this video we're going to look at 2-point perspective sketching, and what we're going to do is we're going to use some isometric blocks and we're going to convert them into 2-point perspective sketches. To start off this process, ideally you're going to need a set square and a pencil, or a ruler and a pencil, so that we've got a straight edge to work with. I'm going to use my set square, and what we're going to do is we're going to look to start about a third of the way down the page. So I'm using a sheet of A3 paper, so that's about 100mm from the top. I'm going to estimate where that is, and I'm going to start by getting a line parallel to the top of my page and make sure that goes all the way across my page. Then about a centimetre, so about 10mm from the edge of the page, we're going to mark in our vanishing point. I'm going to label that VP. I'm going to do the same over at this side. I'm going to label that VP1, and that's going to be VP2. Then at that point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give myself a crate that this fits in, and I'm going to estimate my sizes. So it's about 100mm long and about 50mm back. And with perspective sketching, we're always estimating the sizes. I'm going to start off with a vertical line, slightly off a centre, so about left of centre. I've used my set square to keep it at right angles to the bottom of the page, making sure it's vertical. I'm going to locate a little point at the bottom, and in terms of height, it's about 80mm tall, so I'm going to estimate a point there. And now I've got a top and bottom point, and both of those are going to go to each vanishing point. We're going to connect them up. So either starting at the vanishing point and working back, or starting at this point and heading back to both the vanishing points at the left and at the right. So vanishing point 1 and vanishing point 2. What that gives me is an area for my left surface, so these surfaces here, and for my right surfaces, so these surfaces here. What I'm then going to do is I'm going to work out roughly this distance and roughly this distance and mark them on the bottom lines. Because we know that that's 100 and that's 50, even though we're estimating the sizes, we're just making sure that this line looks about double that length. Once I've got those points, keeping it parallel to this line here, I'm just going to extend a line up there vertically, and the same here. You'll see I've gone a little bit beyond the lines extended to the vanishing points. That's just so I can clearly see where the intersection is. Once I can see where those little intersections are, I'm going to take them to the opposite vanishing point. So going from here over to the left, and from there over to the right, so the opposite of where they went in the first place. You see that my set square is just long enough to reach the vanishing points. If the ruler or straight edge or set square you've got isn't quite long enough, just try and get it going as close to that direction as you possibly can. What you should see now is a top surface, a left surface, and a right surface that we're going to work on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try and create this stepped idea, or this stepped shape, on this right hand side surface. And again, I'm going to estimate each one of these little divisions along the bottom line. And each time I find one, I'm going to draw a vertical line up. Once I've got those, I can then estimate roughly where each one of these little heights would be on this front line here. And I could do it on this line or this line, it won't really matter. What I'm then able to do is extend back the way, creating this little grid shape on the front surface. Just to make it a little bit clearer, I'm going to line this in using a fine liner pen. However, when you are doing this, you would just line a little bit heavier, changing your construction lines to outlines. The only reason I'm using the pen is just to get it to show up a little bit clearer. The only thing I'm lining at the moment is those lines on that front surface. Now that I've got all these little sections here, each little intersection is going to go back to the vanishing point on the left hand side over to vanishing point 1, and I'm going to pay close attention to where it intersects this back line here. So going from there, each little change in direction goes back to the vanishing point. Now, just like other pictorial views, just like an isometric, on this view here, every line there and there, it repeats at the back as well. The same sort of process is followed at the front and the back. In this case, in isometric, it's parallel. It won't be parallel in a perspective because of the perspective, but we're looking to follow the same rough path at the back as we do at the front. So we can see it goes along, down, along, down, along, down. We're going to try and recreate that same thing here. So we can see if we go back to this point here, we're going along and we're looking for that next intersection and a change in direction for it to go vertically down until it hits the next line going back towards the vanishing point, this line here. Now that that one is in there, what we're going to do is we're going to line these in just to make them a little bit clearer. Changing from a construction line to an outline. Remember, you'd just be leaning heavier with your pencil. I'm doing it with a fine liner just to make it stand out on the video. I can also close off this shape here because I know that area is complete. I'm then going to look at this little intersection here, and this time I'm going to come from the vanishing point and I'm going to go through it and go forward. So projecting from the vanishing point, going forward, creating that extra line here until it meets this line going back. So it's always looking for little intersections, looking for little changes in direction to find where they link up. I then know that I go vertically down here just until I find that next line that it's intersecting with. And again, going back to the vanishing point and looking for where it goes forward. Projecting from the vanishing point, going through it and out there, and I'm just going to slide my set square forward a little bit just to extend that line until it hits that next line going back to the vanishing point, and this is where our shape is going to close off and we can finish in with those extra lines. And what you can see is we've got the same sort of pictorial view, very similar to isometric. The difference is the perspective is allowing it to see the depth changing as it gets further away from our eye. So let's now look at a slightly more complicated object, this time with a sloping surface that doesn't quite follow the horizontal lines and the vertical lines that we've been using in the other blocks, but the process is still very similar. We're going to get a crate big enough to fit this object, and then we're going to start subtracting parts away from it. My starting point is again just to go slightly off centre, create myself a vertical line going through the middle of the page, pick a starting point down at the bottom and get an overall height, and then extend those back to the vanishing point. Getting my crate first of all that everything's going to fit within. Once I've got the crate, I can start looking at adding some of the information at the front. So looking at that line there and looking at this line here. Once I've got those points, I'm going to go vertically down for this one and then back to the vanishing point, as I'll need that to create that line here. And this one is going to go back to the vanishing point here and across there to get that line and that line. I'm now able to get that front shape just like that boundary there. I'll use the fine liner pen, but you would just lean a little bit heavier with your pencil to go from construction line to outline. can also line in that top surface because I know that that one is complete. Looking for where it meets at the intersections, just to get that area correct there. I'm also able to line in this surface here, just like that one down there, because again I know that that one is also complete. What I'm going to do is I'm going to extend this line down here and these ones back to the vanishing points. And what you can see, if I didn't have that little sloping surface, I would be able to complete the shape, but I do still need to add in this area for the sloping surface. But I've got this line, which is going to give me that, which is going to be useful later on. What I can do is I'm going to just estimate my measurement just in from the back there, and the same down at the bottom. So estimating it in to here, and the same down there. And what I'm going to do is I'm not going to go back to the vanishing point this time. I'm just going to link the two lines together to create that sloping surface, and the same with this one here. What I'm able to do is line that in, and that one. And again, I can go back to my vanishing point from this point down here, because again it's another intersection, so we go back to the vanishing point. I'm not going to take it all the way back because I know that it's going to cross over this line here, which is going to give me that little intersection here. And it means then that I can just extend this line vertically down to join the two together. So even though it might look like a more complicated shape, because it's got the slope in it, the process is still the same. Getting that crate first of all, looking for where our intersections are, going back to the vanishing points, and when we find intersections and we find closed off surfaces, we can line them in, just changing them from construction line to outline. So now you've had the opportunity to see how a couple of different blocks are drawn, you can start looking at some of the wider objects. They start from bronze through to silver and gold, and then some more challenging extension ones. And what you're going to do is you're going to try and create them as 2-point perspective sketches, estimating the sizes, but trying to keep the proportions similar to those that are laid out in the isometric drawings.